Perhaps we don't need to do it. The next board meeting would be what, January
12th,
12th?
Monday.
Does anyone see a need for an additional meeting? And a need to pick a date?
I would propose that we keep it as a possible meeting in case something comes up.
Okay, do you want to pick a date?
So it would be the 4th Monday, which would be the 22nd.
Okay, duly noted. We will consider December 22nd as a possible date for a meeting if needed. I'll leave that up to the discretion of the chair in concert with working with the superintendent. Okay, that now brings us to item 10 on the agenda, which is public comment. If anyone has anything to say about any of the items on the agenda tonight, I'd very much like to hear that before we take any formal action and see what the public has to say on all the items that they heard discussed this evening. Are there copies of the agenda in the audience? So I'd like to open that up if you could again state your name and account. Anyone? Yes, Sue.
Susan Colby, Bristol, and of course I have something to say. And I like to think that it's heard, not always, but I hope. I was surprised to hear today about the number that was put forth about the Hill being higher than other districts had offered, because a few meetings ago, or the last meeting I was at, there was some talk that it was, what our number was too low or not fair to other towns in our district. And it just seems, I don't know, a bit strange. I'm hoping that there's a board member who's in favor of the middle school model on the committee, the Hill subcommittee, because I think it would be very easy to make that number too high and not attractive to Hill, you know, to make sure those numbers stay low. And I like to think that's not going to happen, but I can honestly tell you I'm not sure that wouldn't happen. We have a business administrator who has done this before. I may be wrong, but I don't believe that any of our school board members have had this kind of contract. So I say let him do his job. The school board can focus on improving student outcomes. What else? And I didn't take what Superintendent Buckley mentioned about Section 8 housing as sarcasm. We had heard that the numbers coming into the Bridgewater Hebron School in the future years are low, like single digits. And I think it would be great. I think it would be a good thing to investigate affordable housing in those towns. And I guess that it also came up, was mentioned that any model can work with the support of the community, and it's been made clear that the community does not support a 7 through 12 model. So I'm hoping that the board hears that and understands that that's not what our community wants, or the majority of our community wants. Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Hay.
Hank Wola, Bridgewater. Excuse me for speaking. Blake is going to sleep here. I have to disagree with the prior comment that the majority of the community does not support or supports the middle school. The meeting of, for instance, all of the select boards with the unanimous agreement and vote of those boards suggests that there is another view out there that says more people need to be looking at this, and not just those who are have some, let me say, association with the middle school or with the district right now. It needs to be looked at in a broader range because there's a lot of more people who are affected by this. And they do have opinions. And they're not necessarily as was just presented. Thank you.
Anyone else? John? Oh, I'm sorry, Ann.
No, go ahead.
Oh, thank you. Ann Learned, Bristol. I would like to start by saying I'm not opposed to change because anytime there's change, you get new opportunities that present itself. What I guess I would like to see the board focus on is instead of reacting to closing this building, closing that building, to say, why don't we do some research as to what is the best educational model to educate our students and decide what that is first, and then work on implementing it. If we really want to focus on improving student outcomes, let's just not shift them from building to building. Let's truly do some research and see what's the best way to educate our students and start there. I would also say I'm very much, and I hope the board really will consider approving the new numbers that we're going to put forward to the Hill district, the Hill students, because I would very much like to see those students come to our district. And I think it's the right thing to do to try to make the price a little more appealing to get those additional students. We need those students in our building. And let's see. I think that's it. I think that's everything. Thank you.
Hi, I'm John Sellers. I'm not going to stand up this time. The few comments I have is on 9D with the facilities, regarding the facilities wanting to have some money to do that study. I look at it as it's a tool. I mean, if you need a tool to fix a car, you're going to go out and buy it and or rent it and get it done so the car is repaired. This is a tool. You know, $5,000–6,000 per student cost. You're looking like $5, you know, when you break it down. So you're talking pennies, you know, on this study. And to me, it just makes sense to do a study. It's a 20-year study. It will be a prediction. It's like Mike says, if we could predict, we'd probably be in different jobs, all of us. You know, we're very good at it. But I also think that you need, and moving on from there, is that we need to look at, you know, as an order of things. And an order of things, as well as this lady back here just mentioned, as far as student curriculum and stuff, is I look at it as you need to do it definitely on your buildings. You need to see what you got, how much space, how much it's going to cost to repair each building so you know. And then you can make a more educated decision. Again, what Hank was saying over here, you know, they think they want to close the middle school, but I've been to several meetings, I mean different types of meetings, the school board, the facilities, the budget, and you start to hear all these little interworkings, and you start to realize you just can't close something. It's going to cost you more to close it than to try to keep it open. You know, so you have to, unfortunately, we're only getting small little slivers of the pie here. And so, and that's why it's hard to get to all these meetings, but I try to get as many as I can just to try to educate myself so I'm making a better, more informed decision. But, you know, again, it's like how can you move students around, you know, K through 6 or 7 through 12 when you don't know what you're going to need for buildings. And if the building, you know, the facilities people are going to at least come back and say, hey, this is what we got for buildings, and if you wanted to do 7 through 12, you could do that, but it's going to cost you $6 million, you know, because you need this, this, and this, besides the, you know, the space you already have, you know, but hopefully they'll come back with several different options to say, if we keep everything as status quo, this is what it's going to be. If we go to the next point, it's going to be this, you know, point B, point C, so like that. The other thing I was noticing here is like, and I know it's not business, we're talking about kids, and I got 4 of them that are going through the school district, okay, so, and I think the school district does a pretty good job, you know, and my wife and I, we moved here less than 5 years ago, and part of the reason was the schools. It wasn't that you had, you know, the greatest schools, but the schools were part of the whole thing, and that middle school made a big difference, especially for my wife, and going through as far as the kids, having that time to grow and just to spread their wings a little bit more. But I'm looking at here, I'm saying, what we need to do, and maybe all the towns with the selectmen, select boards, and as a joint venture with the school board, is have some type of sales. You got to sell the area. If you start selling the area and selling the schools, people will come, if that's what we need to get the numbers up. I mean, that's what I'm looking at. And then you still have the hill factor. Yeah, it's like you're trying to do all these workings, and it's like you still have, you know, it's like you're juggling 6 or 7 things out there, trying to figure out which one is going to happen first, second, and third. And I'm saying you've got to come to some type of orderly, you know, process before you just start moving kids all over the place, you know, and disrupting teachers and stuff like that. You know, I'm even feeling for Mike and Stacy saying, I guess your longevity here is only 1 or 2 or 3 years maybe, you know, the way it sounds, but I hope it's longer. I know the company I work for, they retain their people. They have 12,000 people and they retain them. And because so, they've been profitable for 37 years in a row, you know. And one thing they say is one of the mottos they have, is, you know, it's power to know, you know. You know, it's just that knowledge. When you have knowledge, it gives you power to know what's going on. And that's what I think when it's coming down to the facilities, you're going to give them that tool, or at least allow them to have that tool, so they know. You know, other than that, they're just going blind. So there's a bunch of things there, but, you know, again, if for sales and stuff like that, people will want to move to this area. Just, we got so much going on here, plus the cost of living, like you guys were saying. So a lot of these houses are going for low money, they're going duplexes and stuff. So I would think we could actually sell this, and I mean, and even put in the future, put a budget item on there just for advertising, just to sell the schools and the towns, so we can actually grow and get the numbers back up. That's what you're trying to do. And I think that's the board's job and also the administration's job, is get these numbers back up. So, thoughts, that's all.
Thank you.
I just want to say that my daughter,
Thank you.
I'm Tara Pierce from Bridgewater. I just want to say that my daughter, I live in Bridgewater, and my daughter, I'm sorry, I'm nervous. I hear all the time about how the middle school is bad, and the middle school is horrible and everything. I got my tax bill, and it said in my tax bill a letter that said the middle school was doing poorly. And I'm sorry, but my daughter's 12, she's in the middle school, and she's doing great there. And she's in 7th grade, and the middle school is not bad. And I just wanted to tell you, the school board, that, because I think there's a perception from a lot of people that the middle school, Utah Middle School is a really bad place, and it's not. It's not a bad place at all. It's really good. And my daughter's doing great there. Her friends are doing great there. There's a ton of activities. I mean, like the other gentleman was saying. I mean, it's a really good school, and I just feel like people are always saying we should just shut the middle school down because, it's too much money, or we want to get rid of the facilities or whatever. And it's just, they need that time. They need that place. And the middle school is doing really well. I don't understand. I want to see where they're getting the data to say that the middle school is actually doing poorly, because I don't see any evidence of that. Because my daughter's doing great, and my daughter's friends are doing great, and everything else.
Thank you, Tara. Anyone else?
Barry Murphy, Bridgewater. Well, as far as those statistics go, they come from the Department of Education relative to schools in the state, within the state in terms of our schools. We're not trying to run. First thing is, I want to make sure everybody understands. Bridgewater, when they had this meeting with all the select boards, it had absolutely nothing to do with running anybody down. Okay, we're trying to turn around and support change that would benefit a better education for the kids. what we've seen is 20 years, if you go back, it goes from anywhere as 11% to 27% in terms of the school rankings, which is just one measure, I understand that. So we didn't turn around and build a school, an elementary school. We didn't build and spend all this extra money from Bridgewater and Hebron to turn around and be anti-education or stingy. Okay, so we have put a lot of effort into that, and in terms of the purpose of the meeting, and they came out unanimous, and everyone that went to that board meeting had a majority of board members there. If they had 3 members on the board, they had 2. If they had 5 members on the board, they had 4. Okay, we actually had a majority, which was rare. And not one negative thing and not one thing was talked about money to turn around and try to cut costs. It was how to improve the educational quality. Okay, so there's no agenda, and we've always turned around and been really supportive of the school district. The reason for turning around and having this past issue associated with withdrawing from the district was solely because of inactivity. And if you want to know why everybody's upset about there's no security, is because there is a plummet in enrollments throughout the state. And you can put your heads in the sand about the matter. You can study it for 20 years. You won't get anybody for 20 years. 5 years is about as good as you're going to get, maybe up to 8. But you have a Belknap Hall at the university is empty. It's under repairs. They're not going to fill it next year. They're not even going to open it. We've already had people laid off. Okay, that's because of, you have a school like in Salem. They just closed an elementary school, and they're in a very high place of jobs, which drags families into the area. If you improve the school quality, we want to see the school quality improve. We're not out there throwing it down and trying to walk it under and try to close the school for the sake of closing the school and save money. What they want to do is, if the school's closed, they want to see $1 million worth of savings and push that back into improvements in building facilities and salaries and educational quality. There wasn't one person that talked about cutting budgets in this meeting. Okay, but there's absolutely, we have a situation where we have a helicopter sitting at about 10,000 feet, and everybody's debating the fuel gauge is incorrect when it's on empty. Okay, and there's no decision being made. Okay, and it drags out longer and longer. You want the data so accurate that there's absolutely no risk. And I don't know of any situation where you don't have risk in making a bad decision. The worst thing you can do is not make the decision at all. So all we've done is to turn around and try to put some backing, and in fact, to quote one of the members of the board, I think one of the boards, was basically, "We've got your back. We want to see better improvement for the output of the kids." Okay, it's not a matter of trying to save money, it's not a matter of throwing money at it. And moving over to the Hill thing. The Hill thing is expediency. You want to get money, and you're willing to turn around and have a 2-tiered system, somebody just suggested, which was basically, we'll have one rate for people who are part of the district, and another one so we can get the 800,000 or 600,000 or whatever it's going to be. I have yet to ever see a system that you're going to buy your way out of by trying to enhance your revenues, because it usually dries up, and your expenses have gone up and up and up, and meaning you find yourself further underwater than you are now. So I'm not against the idea totally of that in terms of reviewing it, and I know everybody has a lot of experience in setting up these tuition things, but in general, you're better off focusing on what it costs you to do it rather than turning around trying to buy your way out of it. The fact is that you are now at 1,100 and some odd students. When they created the school district, it was 960 back in the 60s. You're getting fast approaching that. How much retrenchment have you had in terms of loss of faculty and staff so far? Because I'll tell you, this isn't going to buy, it buys a short reprieve, but sooner or later, you know, all of the cities and towns are seeing this problem. Franklin may or may not be representative of what they did in terms of their decisions in closing schools. Yeah. But there are all other kinds of places that have closed schools, and it continues to happen because they just don't have the students. And all of the statistics that was shared with everybody came from either the U.S. Census, the Employment Labor Statistics, the Department of Education, the Department of Revenue. They weren't statistics made up. There were statistics that were brought from government agencies that don't have a dog in the fight. So you're going to see, I think, enrollment that might stabilize for a little while, but it's going to go down by the next 5 years. You'll be under 1,000. then what are you gonna do? Because you don't have a plan in place, and that's all we're asking to see happen, is really get a plan in place. And I don't see any plan actually coming out of this, just more studies. Anyways, thank you.
Hank, before you go, if there's anyone else that hasn't spoken, Tom?
Tom Fitzpatrick of Bristol. I was just wondering, what about Hill's thoughts and ideas are as far as Newfound's indecision whether they want to go keep the middle school or close it and go to the 7 through 12 at the high school. And next on the agenda is you're putting a big list on the facilities committee, because with or without Hill, it makes a big difference on the facilities too. So how many, I don't know how many kids there is actually coming in from Hill. So, and I don't think, in my theory, I don't think 7 through 12 would work, because you're gonna be packing too many kids into the elementary schools. I don't think those schools can handle the load. That's it.
Anyone else? Before, Ken?
Ken Bradley, Alexandria, New Hampshire. Just to kind of, I guess, piggyback on what a lot of people have said, what I see here is trying to come up with these multiple plans, going to a 7 through 12 out here and adding on anywhere from $2 to $4 million to put additions on to move kids out here, which is going to raise our taxes. Closing a building down that is working now and is capable, which will cost us money to have it down, which will cost us staff to keep it open to the point where that things are not freezing and it is not overrun with everything that buildings get overrun with when you close them down. It just seems like, I guess I agree with what Terry's here in saying, we want to see a plan in place. What I disagree is that, I think there's 3 points. There's making a decision, there's not making it. There's not making a decision, and there's making an uneducated decision. And I feel like that's where we're at right now, is let's just jump in both feet first and hope we land in something good and not another mess again. If I could just take 2 seconds to read something here, and I'm hoping that most of the people here understand what this is. This is on our district's website: to provide the best possible public education to the students of the district. Further, our commitment to residents of the Newfound area is to prepare its students for the outside world, beginning at the earliest stage of life to ensure the greatest chance for success. We shall provide the tools and expertise to enable rational and ethical decision-making, participation in a demographic republic, and the use of language with proficiency. We will provide a well-rounded experience to enable navigation through the variety of cultural, social, and technological environments. We will support experts in education and attract and retain employees dedicated to the implementation of this vision and at an affordable cost to the taxpayers. We seem to be getting the last portion, talking about the affordable portion for the taxpayers, but we continue to have very low morale among teachers at our schools because there's a huge amount of indecision by everyone involved, not just our school board, but I think by everyone involved. And that's causing more and more students to leave this school, not trending, leaving just because they want to get out of the district to a district that's more stable. And if we continue to go in an agenda direction, we'll continue to watch students leave this school, good students. We'll continue to watch good parents, good teachers leave this school district. So I think that we need to make educated decisions. I don't see how that spending $5,000 is an exorbitant amount of money, as it was said not too long ago. I think that that's well invested money in our students and in their future. And I think that we need to be sure that as parents, as a school board, as administration, that we don't have an agenda set forth when we go out to make these decisions. Thank you.
Thanks, Ken. Anyone else? Yes.
I'm Sharon Klapik from Danbury.
I'm sorry, could you say your name?
Sharon Klapik from Danbury. I'd like to say that if this meeting was advertised that we were discussing 7 through 12, there would definitely be more people from the public here. Most people I know in the school system do not want it. And while there might be a wide variety of ages in our towns, the people that it really does affect are the people educating their children and paying taxes. I know my taxes are high. I don't mind paying them. I have 3 kids in the school system. I'm happy with that. I do not want my taxes to go up to put my kids in a 7 through 12. I don't. I have a 7th grader. He emotionally could not handle being around seniors, not at all. He is stressed out, doing very well in middle school, but finds it very stressful to have to move from class to class and have so many different teachers and their black, green day and white day and what block is he on and all this. It's very stressful. And to have that stress and seniors over him and their improperness and low morals and a lot of other things that goes on with teenagers, I'm completely against that. Completely. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else who hasn't spoken yet? Fred?
Fred Robinson from Danbury. I guess what I'm seeing is demographics are showing that this is a statewide problem. Okay, maybe not every part of the state is experiencing the same loss of students, but this is a statewide problem. What is the Department of Education saying about this? What are our cohorts that we've worked so hard to gather data on? What are they doing to deal with this? What is the data that we continually gather showed us about what we are doing differently from the other schools that are able to, there's, as this fellow said, there's so much information that needs to be found out before a decision like this is made. What is the school board association saying about this? They're going to be having a convention. Is this something that's going to be brought up at the school board association? Obviously, we are not the only towns that are having this problem. What are the other areas doing? What seems to be happening? Are they, are districts combining? Before we make a decision on this, before we say, yes, this is what we want to do, there has to be, there's got to be an array of things that we can find out about what other communities are doing about this. And, I feel that that's going to be very important. Doing a study is, as John said, a tool. I've worked with tools all my life. You want a good job, you buy a good tool. You have to spend money to get a good tool, all right? Now, a tool that's going to project for 20 years may not be as good as one that's going to project for 10. Because there's going to be a lot of guessing, there's going to be a lot of, projection and stuff like that. I really feel that, as many times as we keep saying nothing's ever done, it seems like, there's a lot of, we're going this way and that way, we're being drawn and pulled in all different directions. The idea that we need to be educated before we make this decision. We need to be educated before we, what do we really need if we do all-day kindergarten? We need to be educated as what will actually happen in the school classrooms if we move 7th and 8th graders into the high school. What is happening out in the, in these other districts that have this? So, I guess that's just my thoughts on what this is. Thank you.
Thank you, Fred. Okay, now, unless I can convince Heather to say something, we would have...
I have lots to say, but you already heard it.
We would otherwise have a unanimous discussion this evening from the audience, which I'm proud to say is the first time happened. So I'd really like to hear from you.
Okay. As far as a 7 to 12 configuration, it could work, but it's not the best for the 7th and 8th graders. They're in a place right now where they are allowed to make mistakes and get used to changing classrooms. And it's not that the seniors are inappropriate, but they're talking about things that 17 and 18-year-olds talk about that 11 and 12-year-olds don't need to hear. It's just the process of development. Developmentally, they're where they should be. As far as Hill coming here, I don't see the downside at all. I think it's a great idea. I know it goes against your declining enrollment and would hinder closing a building, but I think it's a good deal for us. And if we look away and this other district gets them, that's too bad for us. I'll leave it at that.
Thank you. Now everyone's spoken. Who would like to speak a second time? John?
Dear Les, I just wanted a couple things. I'm glad you guys are taking, all of you are taking the time to really review all this, because there's a lot of material here, and it's going to affect a lot of families, a lot of kids. And again, even the taxpayers that don't have kids, it's affecting them too. And I think we realize that. It's taken a whole community, in this case a district, to raise these kids. And so, you know, I'm hoping the elderly people, we don't want to put a burden on them either, because they have a fixed income. So hopefully this will become stabilized in time. But the other thing I told the budget committee last time, I said, you got to spend money to save money, all right? In business, you spend money to make money, all right? But in the school district or towns, you spend money to save it. So if you spend money on a tool, hopefully you're going to make a better decision, that you don't make a wrong one and end up spending a lot more money because of that decision you made. So that's what I'm just saying, by spending money to actually save money. But you guys are doing a good job, and I appreciate everything that you guys do, and I really do. And I'm glad a decision will be made, I'm sure, and I'm sure it's coming soon. But I'm just saying, I'm glad you're taking the time to review everything and hearing our comments as well. Thank you.
Okay. Tom, I'm sorry.
Tom Caldwell, Bristol. I wasn't going to speak. I'm trying to be totally impartial here. However, I was involved. I was on the committee that got this high school in place, and we had to do population studies for that. And my feeling is spending $4,000 to $6,000 is a waste, because taxpayers' money has already spent money to get these figures. The state has these figures, our towns have the figures, the town reports show the birth rates. All that information is out there, and to me, why do we need to hire somebody else to gather the information that other people have already gathered? It's just a matter of looking at the information that pertains to us, and that comes from the town reports. You can see the births, you can see building applications, all that information that hiring someone to study, they're going to look at that same information, but it's already out there. The taxpayers have already paid for that. And to spend another $4,000 to $6,000 to gather that together, to me, is worthless. The facilities committee or some other board committee, as part of what they're already doing, that's how we got this high school here, is we had the committee that was looking at places to site the high school. They had to prove that there was a need for the high school, and so we gathered up all that information from the state planning office, from all these other sources. And that information is still out there. It needs to be updated, obviously, but it's just a matter of gathering it together. It's there. So that's my feeling on, yes, it's important to have all this information. It's an important tool that is needed, but it's already there.
Ann, you had your hand raised before. Do you still want to speak a second time?
No, thank you, because it's not directly related to an agenda item, only to a comment made.
Okay.
I just want to make sure that the zoning does violate a lot of different kinds of configurations of housing in Bridgewater since '85.
Anyone else? Okay. Thank you all for your comments. I sincerely appreciate that. It helps me anyway. trust the rest of the board takes it into consideration as well. It is just after 9, and I would consider a motion to recess momentarily for 5 minutes. And we'll be back to talk about action items. Section 11, which is a motion on the consent agenda. And after looking at the items on the agenda that we discussed, I see 5 items that could be candidates to go to the consent agenda. We could take one vote, and then there are 2 others that we might want to consider. 3 others that we would consider individually, based on my assessment. So if you're inclined to do that, I would suggest, and this is a suggestion, if there's any objection, we won't do it, that under item 9C, confirmation of the budget committee vote, go to the consent agenda. The policies go to the consent agenda, which is D. F, the approval of June 30th retirees, and H, the field trip request, and I, the surplus disposal request are candidates, in my opinion, for the consent agenda. If there's no objection, I'm going to suggest that we do that, and then we don't have to take action on the delegate assembly representative, or the second board meeting in December, or the review of the changes in adequacy. But we would want to consider, under old business, the discussion of moving the 7th and 8th grade to the high school, report of the Calvin Hill Subcommittee. And maybe the warrant articles, in case someone has a change, and then the request from the facilities committee to do the demographic study. That's to simplify this. Does anyone disagree? Okay. I'm going to suggest then that the consent agenda, for a single vote, include items 9C, 9E, 9F, and 9H.
And I.
And 9I. I see everybody is following that. Okay, without objection, I would entertain a motion to add those items to the consent agenda.
So moved.
Moved by Jeff. Seconded by Christine. And if there's any discussion, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Voted 6-0-0-1. Is there any objection to taking that as the vote of the consent agenda? Hearing none, we'll record that as a approval to pass the consent agenda. Now moving on to item 8A, discussion of moving the 7th and 8th grade from NMS to NRHS. Is there any action that you might want to consider for this item, 8A? Hear anything, and there is a little box on my form here that says no action as noted. So we have that option. Any objection to that? And so it is, no action taken. Item 8B, report of the Hill Subcommittee. What's your pleasure on this item?
I'd like to move that the board approves the tuition calculator presented by the business administrator and that so it would approve the tuition calculator presented by the business administrator, and to give that to the Hill School Board.
You mean to the Hill Subcommittee?
Present that to,
You mean to the Hill Subcommittee to present to the, to Hill?
Do you mind if I just add one comment? To add this calculator as a basis for contract negotiations. I would not base a tuition rate on this without addressing each of these cost items in a contract. So I think that's the intent of the motion.
How about this? Then move to approve the tuition calculator as the basis for the Hill Subcommittee to proceed with meetings with the town of Hill. Proceed?
Yeah.
What is negotiations?
I think it's approve the tuition calculation as a basis for a tuition agreement as presented by the business administrator, and to give that to the Hill
Wait a minute, I don't
Subcommittee.
have room to write all that. All we want to do is...
That was kind of your motion, but then adding as a basis for a tuition agreement.
And it is important to note the cost, like Stacy just mentioned, because we would be presenting this basis of a tuition with the following items that are being calculated as further cost items to be addressed in negotiating a contract. It's because they're going to want to look at this as like, okay, what is the cost to our bottom line going to be when they are going to use this basis as a comparison point with other districts' formulas.
I think it goes without saying that those elements are part of your calculator.
I totally agree. I just want it to be included in that motion because I'd be happy to write, work with Stacy to write the letter to them offering this as a basis.
Okay. One other way we can handle this, Ben, is for you to take a minute to actually draft it with that input, if you want to consider that, and we'll go on to another item, if you like. Or we can just spend the time and resolve this, because...
Well, didn't Stacy's wording cover that?
Yes.
Well,
It was exactly what Ben said, adding in as a basis for tuition agreement.
okay, one of the other things that I like to do is give you this form to put it in writing, and then we have it exactly the way you want it, and we'll vote on it accordingly. What I have noted thus far is that Ben moved to approve the tuition calculator as the basis for the Hill Subcommittee. And I think you said something like to negotiate.
Yeah, she's going to write it down.
I'd like to have this the way everybody agrees it should be worded. And the next item, that we'll consider is 9A. Okay. Ben, your
I'd like to
motion?
make it, we're going back to Ben's motion?
Yeah.
Okay.
Your motion now reads, the board moved that the board approve the tuition calculator presented by the VA. Oh no, let me read it. The board approved the tuition calculator as a basis for a tuition agreement as presented by the business administrator, and to give that to the Hill Subcommittee.
You could rotate out as a basis for tuition agreement and as presented by the business administrator. Just flows a little better. Got the idea?
Yeah, take a look at your motion.
Thanks.
It's just easier when it's in writing.
Well, while he's doing that, can I make a motion that we table the warrant articles for the time
Oh,
being?
you thought the same thing as I did.
Yeah, you actually don't have to table them, you could just not act on them. because there's something you have to discuss at some point and make a decision on, so.
Well,
Unless you have warrant articles you want to add.
well, the reason I agree with tabling it, Stacy, is depending on what happens with Hill, we have a requirement from a prior vote to add that to the warrant if we are going to propose this to the district. So, to finalize the warrant, we could not do anything, as you say, and just wait until January. Or we could decide to table it pending the outcome of the Hill subcommittee. So, 6 of one, half dozen of the other. See what Ben comes up with. And try to do that and run a meeting at the same time. It's a bit of a challenge.
All right, I'm at a point that I can at least make that and give you this in just a moment.
Okay.
So it's a little bit different, but I think it makes sense. So I move, direct the Hill Subcommittee to enter into negotiations with Hill and to use the tuition calculator as a basis for a tuition agreement as presented by the business administrator.
Sounds simple enough to me. Can I have that? And I'll just label it 8B.
Second.
Okay, made by Ben. Seconded by Dawn. Is there discussion? Sue?
It's the tuition calculated that's presented by the business administrator, right? That doesn't read quite that way.
Well, let's reread the motion, just to be sure.
It doesn't read that way. To direct the Hill Subcommittee to enter into negotiations with Hill and to use the tuition calculator as a basis for a tuition agreement as presented by the business administrator. Can I change that?
Go ahead. Short motion.
To direct the Hill Subcommittee to enter into negotiations with Hill and to use the tuition calculator as presented by the business administrator for a tuition agreement as a basis for a tuition agreement.
Does our seconder agree with that?
Yeah, I just added some colors.
This is the one thing that we do that actually has to be recorded for history, so we should do it properly. All the discussion notwithstanding, the action we take is what's important. Because it is binding on the taxpayers. And the students and the employees.
There it is.
Okay, the motion before us now reads, as moved by Ben and seconded by Don, to direct the Hill Subcommittee to enter into negotiations with Hill and to use the tuition calculator as presented by the business administrator as a basis for a tuition agreement. Okay, further discussion?
I'd just like to go on the record as saying that I do take issue with the SIU costs being pulled out. I don't think that's fair to the rest of the communities. However, I guess I'd have to say that the value of having an agreement exceeds the $60,000 that just roughly in difference, yeah.
As kind of a counter argument to that, if you look at what the towns are actually paying, it comes close to what the result is with taking the superintendent and the school board costs out. So it winds up being fair, even though it, I can see your point as well, that it should be included, but by taking it out,
What you're saying is
the
that,
bottom line comes out.
what you're saying is that what they're saving balances out in the end against what they're not paying.
Against what our towns are actually paying.
I understand what you're saying. The benefit is greater, which I guess is kind of where I'm at.
Okay, I think it's clear as far as my position on this goes. I'm not going to say anything at this point. Anyone else have anything to say? Okay, I'd like to call the question. The motion is before you to direct the Hill Subcommittee to enter into negotiations with Hill and to use the tuition calculator as presented by the business administrator as a basis for a tuition agreement. Without further discussion, all those in favor of this, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The vote is 5-1 with Bridgewater in the minority, no abstentions, and Danbury excused. Okay, the motion carries. We are now on item 9A, which is warrant articles. Was there a motion to table the warrant articles at this point pending the Hill Subcommittee outcome?
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Motion to table the warrant articles pending the Hill Subcommittee outcome made by Jeff. Seconded by Ben. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Any abstentions? Okay, the vote is 6-0-0-1, Danbury excused. That brings us now to item 9D, I believe, which is the topic of the request for the Facilities Committee to obtain a third-party 20-year demographic study of the district.
9C, that's it?
9D, is that not right?
I think you skipped C.
Yes. C was on the consent agenda.
Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Cross-reference.
What is your pleasure on the study?
Make a motion.
If that's your pleasure. Would you like a sheet? Oh, good, someone that likes to do them.
You're gonna want it.
Good idea. There you go. Eliminates error. And I think that does it, does it not? For action items.
Yep.
Do we have any manifests?
Yes, as a matter of fact, we did.
Okay, good.
Have you been in, sir?
Yes, I have.
Oh, Ben has been as well?
Yes.
Oh, good, I did. Tried.
That's about it.
Looks like we have a motion. Okay, Dawn has moved the following: to direct the superintendent to obtain up to 20-year and up to obtain an up to 20-year demographic study of the Newfound district, not to exceed $6,000 for the use of the facilities. Is there a second? Seconded by Christine. Discussion. Well, for the record, I just see this as an excuse to attribute the reason for whatever decision we come to. And it's an expensive one, but that's my opinion. This data is pretty obvious, pretty real of what Anyone else? Hearing no further discussion, I'd like to call for a vote. All those in favor of directing the superintendent to obtain an up to 20-year demographic study of the Newfound district not to exceed $6,000 for the use of the facilities committee signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed?
No.
No. Any abstentions? Okay, the vote is 4-2 with 4-0 with one absence. That's Danbury. Excused absence. The motion passes. Okay, we now move on to financial, which is item 13, which is an approval for a manifest that we may have. Sue?
Yes.
By tradition, falls in the middle. Thank you very
Luckily,
much.
I'd like to approve the manifest for September and October 2014. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Jeff.
Okay, there's a, motion for number 13. Approve the manifest for October and
September and October.
September and October.
Yay.
Post-facto basis. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? By the way, I seconded that.
Oh, I thought so. I think Ben did.
Did Ben?
Yeah, did Jeff?
Oh, okay, for the record, I didn't hear you, so.
You thirded it.
I thirded it. 6-0-0. Okay, that brings us to item 14, which is other business. Does anyone have any other business to bring before this body? Doesn't sound like it. Brings us to item 15 at 9:45 p.m. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
And all those in favor say aye. Opposed,
Aye.
no. The ayes have it.